Hello, welcome back. You are watching Insight live on Raw at 12:51 a.m. I'm your host, Ian Makungu, head of news here at Raw, he, him. I'm going to put this up here right in front of the show. I'm going to put a trigger warning for discussions of sexual violence and police violence because we're going to be discussing the Sarah Everard case today. I just want to also flag up one thing. When we discuss this case, we won't be discussing the details of the investigation or the person who has been charged. Well, we can discuss these. I'm not going to mention his name because as a legal case, we can't do certain things. But now that that's out of the way, welcome back to Insight, the show that's Warwick Students comment on all the big stories of the week, both on campus and off campus. It's my final show today. I'm leaving head of news after this week, so this is my final show. And hopefully it's going to be a good one. We are, as I mentioned, discussing the Sarah Everard case. We're also going to be discussing the new crimes bill that is being put forward to Parliament tomorrow, and the massive expansion of police power offers to do protest. And if we have time, we'll also discuss Piers Morgan's spectacular failure of being presenter of GB News. Good morning, Brit. GMB News. That's what it is. But first, I want to bring in all my lovely guests, starting with Dave Bush. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hi, Enoch. It's a pleasure as always.
Yeah, Dave, what have you been up to then last week since I last seen you? Have you got a new haircut?
I've not got a new haircut. I've just got more hair.
You got this lovely little thing in the front. I'm sorry, it just suddenly struck me. It looks like a little man bun. That's
my hair is nowhere near that long, sadly.
So what have you been up to there since I last saw you?
Honestly, nothing much. To be honest, just a bit of gaming, procrastinating from work. The usual.
Well, that's because Dave, you've been on. How many times have you been on the show in the last term or so? I feel like you've been on the show. I feel like you've been on the show more than I've been on this show at this point, Dave. I feel like you're almost loyal guest.
I think you've definitely been on here more than me. That'd be a very poor form if you were. Four or five times.
Well, I think that's probably a record for this term. Well, Dave, thank you for coming on one last time for the final show. We also have head of arts, Charlie Humphrey. Charlie, welcome to Insight.
Hello again.
Hello, Charlie. It's been a while since we last saw you on the show. Last time you came on was it last term?
It was I think so. It was either that or like very early January because I had some microphone issues with a brand new microphone I got for Christmas, which was just great.
That's true. You came on the show and then you couldn't come on the show.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question, Charlie? How many times have I been on your show?
Oh my God. More than I can count. I think you've been on at least almost every Articulate. Definitely nearly every Articulate this term. Nearly every Artsy about. I'd say of like the 30-ish that I have made, probably a good 25.
So, despite me coming on every single one of your shows, this is only the second time you've come on mine.
I believe it's the third time I've been on your show.
Okay. Well, then you've defeated my argument. You've trounced me. A far better guest, Imogen Harper. Welcome to the stream.
Hello.
Imogen, you're currently doing something quite big. I'm not sure much enough to talk about it. I believe you're running the Pulsar elections. How is that?
It's good. It was a bit of a mayhem this morning, figuring out like my manifesto is not on the SU page, but it's fine. We move. Yes, but it's really enjoyable. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the results are and carry on campaigning this week. So vote Imogen for academic officer.
Yeah. So how have you? So you've got massively involved in society as a fresher, despite the online. How have you found that?
I mean, it's been different. Like, it's been quite hard having to like try and meet people who are society and try and like engage as much as I can because it's all online, so it's very hard to do so. But it's been really like nice so far, obviously being the freshers rep, being able to get to know the exec and other freshers get like wanting to get involved in the society, and like doing all the events. It's been good. It's been nice to kind of get like a bit of a foundation in the society, even though I haven't fully met everyone or been involved in everything that's been going on. But it's been really good. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, someone who is actually the foundation society I'm in. Sean Bolton, station manager here at Raw.
Hello.
Sean.
Yes, I run Raw. Kind of.
Well, for now, Sean is being replaced. Yes.
Yeah.
Sean, how would you summarize this because it's just been just over a year now since we've been elected. How would you summarize the last year of being station manager here at Raw?
Okay, one thing that most people wouldn't know is Raw Exec's Facebook group cover photo is a picture of Bear Grylls. And it says improvise, adapt, overcome. And I think that's been my mantra this year. It's been a bit chaotic, I won't lie to you. I think that's just the case of trying to run a radio station in a pandemic. I've been in the office like once in the whole year, but I've loved it. Like, I've loved every minute of it, and just like seeing how all of the on-air departments are growing so much and people getting involved in everything. It's so rewarding and lovely. So yeah, I'm excited to hand over the baton to the new exec, but I'll be really sad to not be station manager anymore.
Yeah. Can I say, Sean, one thing that's definitely improved in your time at Raw is your internet quality. Because I remember the first time you came on my show, the first of these online shows, you actually couldn't come on the show because your internet simply refused to let you on the broadcast. And yet here you are now, in HD quality. I love it. I love to see a character arc progress, and that your internet's really come far.
I'm not even sure what happened. Like, my internet's not changed. I think it just hated me in lockdown 1. So yeah,
True.
I'm glad I can participate now
Well,
too.
I'm glad you won it over.
Got stressed because of the pandemic.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Charlie. Your internet quality swallowed that comment. I have no idea what you just said.
Oh god, I was just like, I got really stressed because of all the pandemic. I can't leave home.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't get it again, but I'm going to move on now because I can't. I just feels awkward if I just keep saying I can't hear you. Will Kingswood, welcome to the stream.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Excellent. Will, you've been news deputy for the last term. How's it been? How awful am I as a manager?
It's been good. You're a very good manager. Vote for me tonight. And
thank you. I'll slip you £20 later. Will, good job there.
And I really enjoy getting involved, like with the SU elections as well.
Yeah, so I guess would that be your highlight then? The big decision. That was your favorite part of your time here at Raw so far.
I think the fact it went well was really good as well, because obviously from what I've heard from you, last year was interesting to say the least.
Yeah, let's not talk about. Let's just move on. But I'm not talking about last year's big decision. I won't do it. Last but never least, Rin Datcheva. Rin, please tell you can now hear you.
I really hope you can.
Yes, we can. Fantastic.
Yeah, after 10 minutes of troubleshooting, we got there.
Yes. Rin, for those of you who don't know, all two of you watching, Rin is my boss. Well, she's my in the middle boss. Rin's a program controller here at Raw. So every time I make a mistake and you see a flash of fear in my eyes, I'm afraid of Rin. That's what's going on here.
Wait, I finally managed to make someone afraid. I've made it a PC.
Yeah. Rin, what's your favorite part of the last year at Raw been? You can't say insight, although I know obviously insight would have.
It obviously is insight. Yeah. I mean, there's been so many great things happening. I think Raw really got me through lockdown 1, especially, mainly because I had absolutely nothing else to do, and so it was really great to get involved with organizing everything, and it was kind of it seemed like we were gonna be back in term 1. Which was wrong, but it was still really exciting. I think I just remember sitting in my living room and spending 4 hours recording a Eurovision show, which was insane, but that was really fun. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was. And with that, I think I finished the final awkward introduction phase of my time ahead of news. It's over. If I never introduce anyone ever again, I'm finally free. We can just jump straight into the show. Before we start, I want to say quick warning for flashing images and also, as the previous trigger warning, discussions of sexual violence and police violence.
Police move in to try to break up an unofficial vigil to mark the life of Sarah Everard, near to the spot where she was last seen. More than 1,000 people had gathered. The police said it wasn't safe under lockdown restrictions. But the organisation Reclaim These Streets, which had cancelled its own plans for a vigil, said it was deeply saddened and angered by scenes of officers physically manhandling women at an event against male violence.
So some breaking news in the last few minutes. Boris Johnson has now publicly commented on last night's arrests at the Sarah Everard vigil.
Yes, well, this is part of Downing Street confirming that the Prime Minister will chair a meeting of the Crime and Justice Task Force tomorrow, focusing on violence against women and girls. And as part of that, we have had a statement from Boris Johnson, which is the first we have heard, his first reaction since those events took place last night. Let me read it to you. It says, like everyone who saw it, I was deeply concerned about the footage from Clapham Common on Saturday night. I have spoken with the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, who has committed to reviewing how this was handled, and the Home Secretary has also commissioned Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary to conduct a lessons learned review into the policing of the event. The death of Sarah Everard must unite us in determination to drive out violence against women and girls and make every part of the criminal justice system work to protect and defend them.
Yes, so last week the nation was horrified to learn the story of Sarah Everard, who was kidnapped on her way home and killed. A suspect has now been held and charged. He was a Metropolitan Police officer. And as I said earlier, we can discuss the real details of the case. Before we get into discussing the vigil and what happened a few days ago, I do want to just discuss, there's been a widespread conversation around the country the past few days about what we as a society can do better to make sure things like this don't happen again. Panel, I want to come to you. What do you think we as a society can do to protect women and girls who are facing horrors like this? Charlotte, I want to come to you first.
I think it's hard. I first want to say that this week, I know for me and for many other women, has been incredibly traumatic. And I think conversations online need to be sensitive to that. And I've seen some horrendous stuff being said online. But anyway, I think one of the biggest things, I've seen conversations about, what men can do to help. And I think it's one thing saying, yeah, it's great to cross the other side of the street or to smile at women and not look like a threat. But I think the other thing is that men need to be having conversations with their friends, because I think a lot of the time predators don't respect women. That's kind of the problem. So, us women talking up about it isn't going to do anything to stop the problem. But I think men listen to other men. And I think if men can accept that those conversations need to be had and stick up for women more in those situations, I think that could do an incredible amount of good. And really change things. So I think that's a really great step in a direction, is men being open to having these conversations about it.
Dave, what do you think?
I'd agree with Shana. I think it is important to have conversations about it. Honestly, I'm not sure about how much can change. I think personally I'm quite a pessimist, but yeah, I do think that men do need to have these conversations. It is something that I've been having and a lot of people have been doing. But yeah, honestly, I've got no idea what can help improve the situation. But
Charlie.
Honestly, conversations need to be had between women and men. I was having a family call with my siblings last night, and my brother, although he knew the statistic that 97% of women are sexually harassed, he still didn't get the point really as to it. He also needs to have these conversations with his friends, because he's like, I haven't attacked a woman, so it's not my problem. But it's kind of a universal problem for everyone in society to think, firstly, the steps of such catcalling or even just objectifying a woman in a public place or following her home, it's that they're wrong behaviors and that you shouldn't allow them. But yeah, I think definitely more talk needs to be had, especially defining exactly what counts as what makes a woman uncomfortable, because obviously getting catcalled in the street, it's not the most offensive thing, but it can still make a woman feel very uncomfortable and sort of afraid for her. So there needs to be talks about not normalizing this sort of behavior towards women and to start respecting them in society, as men seem to have not done so far.
Yeah. Imogen?
Yeah, I'd completely agree with what Sean was saying. Like obviously like showing on social media, spreading awareness about what men can be doing, like crossing over the street, making sure they don't like seem intimidating and just doing the best they can. But I think that that will only be received by like a small minority of men who are willing to like make the change and like go out of their way to really like try and focus on this. And to those men that do it, like so much respect for you. However, the people that won't do that, and like kind of as Sean mentioned, some of the stuff that has been coming out online is just absolutely disgusting. And that is like the area that needs the most amount of work. So like having conversations between men is how it's going to try and make a difference here, because like kind of as David was saying, it's like a massive shift and it's very hard to kind of create a whole new culture around how women are treated in certain situations. But I think that what we can do is just continue to have these conversations like in the future and keep up this momentum rather than brushing under the carpet, because of course Sarah Everard is a unique case that was publicized by the media. So many cases of women were not shown to this extent, and I think for us to truly make the change that we need to see is to keep on having this conversation in the future and making sure that, you know, when stuff does happen to women, that it gets the right publicity and people are aware of it and try and make the change in their own lives. Obviously it's very hard to do, but I think the main thing is just to keep up the momentum.
Yeah, I mean, you highlighted there that this is just one case for the media having to pick up on, but I think Jess Phillips stood in the House of Parliament yesterday, and she read out, I can just find she read out 180 names of women who were killed last week by men, not last week, but killed by last year by men. So this is obviously it's very difficult. It's a very difficult topic to get through. But we not discuss the case itself. Let's discuss the vigils that happened last week as people gathered together to mourn Sarah Everard and, you know, the pain they felt over what was going on in the country. We saw vigils all across the country, but in particular in London. There was one vigil which was at one point attended by the Duchess of Cambridge, which the police then broke up at night. I think we saw some images of the violence earlier. Let's start. Firstly, questions have been raised about whether or not these vigils were appropriate things to do in COVID time, because what people have said online vigils were better, whereas people said actually, you know, we need in person to be able to mourn what's going on right now. Ren, I want to come to you. What do you think about this? Do you think that what do you think about this, Ren?
I think we can all understand why people would want to go and do this in person, and I feel like honestly, it's just the fact that the organization on both sides, like the people organizing the vigil, that then I think sort of said that they weren't organizing it anymore, and also like their communication with the police, that was just, it just didn't work. And I think a vigil is outside, and I feel like it could have theoretically been done in a safe way, but if it was, that would only work if it was organized properly. And I think I fully agree that the online vigils would be a better idea. But at the same time, if people want to like just go, they would have to really like make sure that they were following COVID guidelines, because it would just be incredibly sad if an event like this that was, you know, mourning someone just turned into like a COVID super spreader event that people could potentially die from.
Yeah. I mean, it's very well. Very fair. Also, you have to mention that most COVID super spread events last year have not actually held outside. And there did seem to be some mask use, like a lot of mask use going on at the event itself. Imogen, I know you went to a vigil. Can you talk us what happened there?
Yeah, so I went to the vigil at the Piazza on Saturday. Obviously, everyone was wearing a mask and just distancing as much as they could. It was outside, so I do think that, you know, precautions were taken. I think the event itself was very moving, and I think it like had to be done to kind of bring people together to talk about their stories and to share their experiences. It was very a very like emotional and a very moving event. And I think that it needed to be done, especially given Warwick's experiences of sexual harassment on campus. I think that with the proper precautions taken, everyone wearing a mask, distancing as much as they can, it was a very impactful event, and I really hope it did go far and its impacts more than just the people that were there, but across campus as a whole. I think it goes to show if the planning is in place to make it safe and there's cooperation between people to make it safe, then it is effective in what it can do. I wasn't there for when like security came or anything like that. I stayed for the vigil and then I left. But maybe some people's names were taken. I'm not entirely sure. But from what I saw, there was no outright like aggression from security to say, let's split this up, let's go. They were just saying, make sure you keep your distance. And then for the majority of the vigil, nothing really was said. I think even one security guard took off his like high vis and just with a mask on and just watched the vigil, which was quite a happening and event that occurred. But I think it kind of came to an end when they saw that the police car was driving past and they said, right, we better call this off. So it didn't last for that long. But I think what was said and what did happen was very moving and was definitely needed, especially on campus.
Yeah, and that does sort of mimic what we heard from events across the country, except of course there's one particular London event which was broken up by the Metropolitan Police. I just want first your raw reactions to hearing the story of the police sort of storming in and breaking up this event. Sharon.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult situation, and there's a lot of nuance to the situation. But what I think is hurtful for women is that the problem of sexual violence against women is problematized even more by the lack of trust in the police. And, I know myself and many other women would feel uncomfortable going to the police in certain situations. And I'm a white woman, I'm far more likely to be taken seriously in that situation than Black women or South Asian women. And that's an incredible issue. And I think the police had a chance in that situation. And I know there was circumstances surrounding COVID, but they had a chance in that situation to show some kind of solidarity, some kind of we're with you, not against you on this issue. And I know that this situation and other situations that have happened in the last year have been difficult for many policemen, and they feel that people are against them. But I think there was a chance for the police to be able to kind of show that they stand with women on sexual violence. And I think the opposite happened. And, they're police officers, they have the right to use necessary force. But what came out of it just shouldn't have happened. Absolutely not.
Yeah, well, Sean, you've touched on something there. That last year we saw massive anti-lockdown protests occur in London, and one of the key things people noticed then was that police weren't particularly aggressive towards protesters, and despite the lack of masks they were using, the abuse they were throwing at police officers. If you could contrast that to last night, not last night, 2 nights ago. I'm losing track of time in this stupid lockdown. 2 nights ago, it's a very different story. Will, why do you think this is happening?
It's really hard to say. I think you saw with a lot of the protests last year that there was a very different reaction from the police towards protesters than what we saw last night, and it just seems like the police really misjudged what they could have been doing. They could have been, I don't know, standing on the sides respectfully, just letting people get on with the vigil, and then once it was over, not like encouraging them to disperse, not forcing them to disperse, but saying, if you could go home like after this, as when you want to, because obviously there's COVID and we need to help prevent the spread of that. But what they did, like, how that's unforgivable. They can't go in and break up a peaceful protest simply because it might be potentially spreading COVID, and especially with the context of the case, it was arguably the worst thing they could have done at that specific point.
Yeah, Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Will completely. Like, as in, it hadn't even occurred to me to think the fact that the accused is like a police officer as well. Like, it seems like it's really endemic within the police to be breaking up this sort of thing. But yeah, it's completely inappropriate to be breaking peaceful protest. It's not even it wasn't even a protest really. It's a vigil. Like, it couldn't have like a wake or a funeral. To going in with violence to break it up. It's quite disgusting, to be honest. And like from every single angle, I can't find one way to justify what the police was doing, apart from saying we're following the letter of the law. But it was a really bad thing to do. And when I woke up on Sunday morning and saw that they'd done that, I was quite horrified, to be honest. And yeah, I think there has to be some talk to the police from the government and from MPs saying this is not acceptable. And to be honest, I think that they should be changing the law to allow protesters to stop this sort of thing happening again as well.
Yeah, you mentioned changing the law there. We'll get into just in just a second, but I first want to discuss the Met Police Chief, Christina Dix. She's now faced calls to resign. She's refused. She's faced calls to resign before with some past conducts. This is just the latest case. She's refused to step down. She's indicated she has the Prime Minister's support and the Home Secretary's support. Should this be a resigning offence? Should she step down? Charlie?
Obviously I don't know much about the Commissioner of Metropolitan Police, but even just one instance like that is kind of unforgivable, and shocking how the lack of self-awareness around with the police and around this visual in this case particular. I do think like politicians who are in charge of the country have resigned over a lot less, and when it's becoming more sort of authoritarian and they broke up a vigil, even not a protest, when it's just like women with flowers sharing their stories of sexual harassment, I do think it's kind of unforgivable and definitely kind of a resignable offence.
Yeah, Imogen.
Yeah, like as Charlie was saying, it's quite hard. I don't know exactly how the proper due process is, but what I can say is everything that's been going on in the past year in terms of the police, it's really time that we start making sure they're accountable for their actions, in terms of especially the Met Police specifically, in terms of their growing allegations of racial prejudice, and then now to do with sexual harassment. I think that it can't just go and be swept under the rug. There needs to be like proper accountability that needs to be taken, and if that comes through recognition, then so be it. But I really hope that people start taking accountability and trying to adapt the Met Police in general, because of just how flawed it is as an institution, and realizing those flaws, and then trying to work on that, and then taking proper accountability for their actions. And there might be a resignation.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's argued that if you want to improve the Met Police behaviour towards women, it would not be the best idea to remove the woman currently in charge. Sean, what do you think about that? Like, I already see you making a face. What do you think about that?
Yeah, sorry, I'm really bad at hiding how I feel.
It's fine. So we're in a visual medium, so I think that's the best way forward.
I think that is that's the perfect example of identity politics that's used that just shouldn't be used. I don't think that having a woman in charge means that life is any way better for women in London. Like, I could see that there could be plenty of other people that would be far more sensitive in a situation like this. She has not shown sensitivity towards this situation, towards women coming forward about their stories, or anything like that. And I think just the entire reaction of the police around the situation, around they advised earlier on in the Sarah Everard case that women shouldn't go out after dark on their own, which is fine. But I think there is a kind of, I don't want to bring up that whole issue of the curfew thing, but there is that kind of imbalance in how we treat men and women in that situation. So yeah, I don't think that it's helpful particularly to have a specific woman in charge. I don't think that leads to justice for women in any kind of thinking, personally.
And Rin, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think she's kind of saying that to save her skin a little bit, because obviously there's been a lot going on in the last year. And yeah, I just agree with what Sean was saying. There is like, they have been like, unacceptable things have been done, especially like disregarding everything else, just this vigil on its own. I think it's clear that the police and the Met Police need some sort of a restructure. They need some new people in, and I think like her resigning would make a big enough statement to show that, because there's so much mistrust between just people, especially people from minority groups, and the police right now. A restructure is definitely needed, and it can start right at the top.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've touched on it right there. I mean, the last 2 weeks have really shown that there's some real institutional decay in some of the places that run this country, and in many ways, are just not fit for purpose. From the Met Police to tabloids to the to Prime Minister's office. I'm not allowed to have opinions. Let's jump next on to I really want to yell at someone. Let's jump straight on to the new police powers bill, which is being passed, which is going up to vote on Tuesday. This bill would grant police new powers over things like static protests. They'll be able to impose start and finish times, set noise limits, and if they decided they were causing a serious annoyance, they could order them to stop. If you refuse to follow police directions of what you should do, you'd be fined £2,500. And this is all part of a large set of new powers being given to police to limit sort of public protest. Panel, what do you think? What do you think here? I mean, we've just seen, obviously, COVID times have given the police enormous new powers to stop protests. In many ways, these new rules would be allowed them to continue to have those powers. Let's start with you, Dave, and just go around. What do you think about this new bill?
I think it's not the best timing at all. And honestly, I don't think that you should be able to shut protests down just because of it making noise, because that's it's the point of a protest anyway. But yeah, I just think it's ridiculous. As in, it's not the sort of time we should be restricting protests more. We should be restricting them less, to be honest. So yeah.
Yeah, Charlie?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's kind of the wrong time to have this bill up for vote. Especially, I don't know, the power given the Metropolitan Police and the police in general haven't had the best sort of track record when it comes to dealing with protests. Giving them more power to kind of crush a protest and kind of just justifying their actions, it's not going to sit well with a load of people, and it kind of seems like the first step towards a more authoritarian state, which is obviously wrong, in my opinion anyway, not for raw news, because they are the opinion.
Yes, no, I have no opinions on the increasing authoritarian. We basically have a judge dread now. That's not important. Imogen, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree that now is not the time to be discussing this bill, and I think it's getting very kind of convoluted with the pandemic, and how obviously we've been in the pandemic for a year now, so it's quite hard for us to see when we weren't in pandemic times and how the impact of protests and what the impact of protests were. But I think that there are enough powers in the police right now for them to be stopping protests in COVID times, as we've seen, with the vigil, with Black Lives Matter protests. There is enough powers for them to properly dispel it if it is getting out of hand, as they have done. Also, obviously, it's questionable whether they've done this for certain football chanters and anti-lockdown protesters. That's a whole other issue. But yeah, this is not the time to be having it. And if we are going to have this discussion, I think that it's going to be a very big question, a big attack on our democracy, especially as we've seen Friday to Future strikes as well. They have had impacts, and I think that as the political system changes, these direct actions and these mass protests do put things on the agenda, and so by having this law now will definitely change the political scene in the future. And I think that it's not the best thing, obviously, for our democracy, even now and in the future.
Yeah, Will.
No, I agree with Imogen. I think if we do pass this, it's a massive blow to democracy in this country. We've always been a society that's founded on principles of being able to protest whenever we wanted about whatever we wanted. You saw in, I think it was 2004, 2 million people protesting war in Iraq, and let's say this bill was in place then, that probably wouldn't have been able to happen. It just seems that there is no need for this bill other than to crush protests, whatever the government of the day doesn't like. And I think it would just be a terrible, terrible idea to put this bill through Parliament and eventually pass it.
Oh no! Well, don't worry. It also includes powers to increase stop and search. Increase and you know what? I'm going to start ranting again. I can't do this. I have one show left to do. Sean.
I like how you just turned to me because you didn't want to rant. Yeah, I agree with Imogen. It's not the right time. Absolutely not. To be discussing this. And it really concerns me. Like it really concerns me, the fact that it would give the police power to break up a peaceful protest because it was annoying some office workers down the street. Like that's the crux of what this bill is, right? And it means that the police can just break up any protest they don't agree with and they don't like. And I think, yeah, I don't know what else to say that hasn't already been said. I can't. This bill just seems like it's a joke. Like, it's so unfathomable that they're actually considering passing this bill. And it's really scary because I think all it's going to do is push protests to be more violent because they can't exercise their right in a peaceful way. Yeah. It's just going to make things worse, honestly.
Yeah. All right, let's put a lot of pressure on Rin then to come up with a new point then. Rin, what do you have to say?
Oh no, everything has been said, and I agree with especially what Sean was saying. I think it's going to make things worse. I think it could escalate things, and it's just the timing. Like, even despite everything that's happened in the last few weeks to a month, like everything that's happened this year really is pointing in the opposite direction of this bill. This should not be happening. Like, there's so many more important things for the police to be focusing on, like how to deal with, a peaceful vigil, not even a protest as such. So there is, like, the energy and time. I don't know how much energy and time has gone into this bill, but it should be going pretty much in the opposite direction of that.
Yeah. We should be going in pretty much opposite direction. Something I can't say that joke. All right. And so what has Her Majesty's loyal opposition been doing over the last week to oppose this bill? Well, until yesterday, Keir Starmer was going to have Labour abstain on voting, which means they wouldn't have voted against it. He has now pivoted to voting against the bill. We also have not seen a great number of Tory rebels come out to say they're opposed to the bill, so it's looking more and more likely every day that the bill is going to pass. This has raised questions of Keir Starmer's fitness for the job. I mean, over the last few months, we've seen his poll numbers start to go down again. He started to lose Westminster intention polls. Now, with Boris Johnson got his vaccine bump, Keir Starmer does seem to be becoming a bit of old news. His consistent failure to pick any particular stands it's drawn him some criticism. But other people have said it's a wise campaigning move this far away from another election. We are very short on time. So, panel, quick one-word answer. Is Keir Starmer doing a good job? Let's start with you, Dave.
No.
Okay. Charlie?
No.
Imogen?
No. And if people say he is, I don't know. I can't see it personally.
Okay. Will?
He's useless.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm from South Wales, and I don't know what his opinions are, so no.
And Rin?
No, please leave at this point.
I'm really glad we kept a solid grasp of what the phrase "one word" means in that. But probably a solid grasp of Keir Starmer's hold on power. We're coming to the end of today's show. I did want to rant about Piers Morgan. I won't lie to you. Last week, when I heard Piers Morgan quit, I was overjoyed. I had a whole show of Piers Morgan gags planned. I was like, I'm leaving my job, Piers Morgan's leaving his job, we'll do like a whole thing. And that didn't happen. It didn't happen. I'm just so tired because I spent the last year head of news reporting awful news. I thought I could finally go out on 1 week where we had something good happen. The country improved somewhat. Piers Morgan was out. And no, everything has to get worse and worse and worse. And I'm sick of it. Sorry.
You can express your opinions and articulate if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. Thank you to everyone who's come on the show today. You guys have been great. And thank you to everyone who's come on the show for the past year. Your support for News Department has been absolutely invaluable. Thank you to everyone watching. X1, this is time for your shout out. Here's your shout out. I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you particularly to Rin, to Sean, to Lucy for supporting me in being head of news through my many blunders. And yeah, X1. Enoch, you made the new I'm all right.
The news? Maybe it's the news.
I did assume that did seem like the most obvious option. Oh, Sean wants to do. Sean, take it away then.
You could have gone to that more naturally.
I don't care anymore.
Yeah, Enoch, you have been an incredible head of news this year, and I want to thank you on behalf of me and Lucy and the station for everything you've done for the news department and adapting to COVID. You've built such a strong department, and you know how you handled the US election and how you handled the big decision, and everything you've done has been really awesome. And I know, like you said, there's not been much good news this year to talk about, but you've made the news department so fun and so collaborative. And yeah, we just really appreciate you and all the work you've done. You've been a shining torch for us all this year. Thank you.
Okay, there's not normally that many sincere positive emotions on this show, so I don't really know what to do here. Thank you, Sean. God, now I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna end the show now. Thank you to everyone who's been watching along. I've already done this bit. Goodbye, good luck, and to next head of news.